Many factors have contributed to the growing wealth inequality within the United States in regards to jobs and wages. The wealth gap has increased by an average of 18% while disproportionately affecting Asian Americans, with a 75% rise since 1970 according to Pew Research. This illustrates the growing divide between the lower class and upper class of America. This coincides with the decline of the middle class, which itself has shrunk by 10% down to 51% of the U.S. population. Currently in the United States, massive conglomerates like Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft dominate their respective industries. With each of these companies being so big, it discourages others from competing. Being the only companies has led them to become monopolies, preventing further competition and decreasing the worth of the worker. This creates wages that are so low people are unable to survive or build wealth. While the worker is hurt, the owners are becoming some of the richest in history. For example, Elon Musk is soon to pass John D. Rockefeller in wealth, who is a notorious owner of multiple monopolies. This also causes innovation to stagger and prices to increase due to inflation, further preventing the people from growing wealth. These fortunes have been driven by increases in productivity, the most impactful being the automation of many manufacturing and other types of jobs. This shift to machines has allowed many companies to expand faster, but has led to issues like job loss and reduced value of human workers. These issues have brought the current minimum wage into question, as it currently stands at $7.25, which is the same amount as it was in 2009, with no adjustment despite a 36% increase in prices due to inflation. This has caused many to struggle as they don't make enough for all their basic needs. This is further supported by the fact that a full-time minimum wage job only pays $20 above the single-person poverty line and is well below the poverty line for 2 or more people. Wages have been able to remain this low due to the amount of jobs that have been offshored to other countries. Currently, over 10 million jobs are being offshored, which has reduced competition and prevented wages from naturally rising. Losing this amount of jobs has reduced the availability of jobs in many industries, especially manufacturing, causing many to be without work or to be working a job they are overqualified for. The loss of these industries has also slowed domestic innovation as fewer companies provides less room for growth.
Monopolies and limited job competition prevent significant challenges in today's economy. When a single company dominates a market, it can suppress wages and restrict employment opportunities. In contrast, competitive labor markets encourage wage growth by fostering an environment where employers must offer better compensation to attract and retain talent. According to Matt Schmidt, an assistant professor for business strategy at UCLA, when firms compete for workers, wages rise because employers must improve compensation packages to stand out. Historically, the U.S. government has intervened to dismantle monopolies that have stifled competition. A notable example is the 1911 Supreme Court case Standard Oil Co. of New Jersey v. United States. As summarized by the Cornell Law School's Legal Information Institute, the court ruled that the Standard Oil's monopolistic practices violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. This decision led to the breakup of Standard Oil into several geographically separate entities, aiming to restore competition in the oil industry. Similarly, in the 1980s, the government acted against AT&T, which had a monopoly over telephone services. The Electronic Frontier Foundation explains that this breakup, enforced under the Sherman Antitrust Act, was needed in order to encourage innovation and competition in the telecommunications sector. These historical interventions illustrate how antitrust actions can reshape industries and benefit consumers. However, in recent years, the government's approach to addressing monopolistic practices has shifted. Instead of breaking up companies, it often opts for lawsuits and financial penalties. For example, the U.S. Department of Justice has filed lawsuits against major tech companies like Google for alleged monopolistic behavior. The Financial Times reports that the DOJ has proposed measures like divesting or selling of an asset the company owns to reduce dominance over a certain field. In addition, large corporations frequently buy out smaller competitors, further increasing their power and wealth. The Institute for Local Self-Reliance warns that this trend reduces competition, ultimately harming consumers and workers. Recently, according to Reuters, the DOJ sued to block a $570 million merger between American Express Global Business Travel Group and CWT Holdings, citing concerns about reduced competition in the business travel management sector. The growing concentration of corporate power also widens the wealth gap. When monopolies dominate, profits benefit a small group of executives and shareholders, while wages for the most workers stagnate. According to the Economic Policy Institute, rising monopoly power has reduced labor's share of income, directly contributing to stagnant wages for many workers. Stricter merger rules and automatic reviews are needed to prevent companies from consolidating entire industries. Expanding resources for agencies like the FTC and the DOJ would allow for better enforcement by oversight. By implementing these measures, policymakers can create fairer markets, boost wages, and reduce income inequality.
On top of the previous issues mentioned, there is a new threat to jobs and wages within America. The rise of technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and advancements in robotics technologies, especially in the service and manufacturing industries, could very well take over a large portion of jobs, leaving many unemployed. By looking at similar situations throughout history, such as the creation of the steam engine or the development of the assembly line, we learn that though these revolutionary inventions do have the potential to eliminate the vast majority of jobs, they open many opportunities as well. A research paper published by David Autor at MIT presents the likelihood of automation destabilizing employment. They concluded that this largely depends on two factors: how they shape employment and laborers' share of value added directly in the industries where they occur, and how potential unemployment will be offset through new employment elsewhere in the economy. They discovered that on average, the employment loss caused by automation is reversed by indirect gains within other consumer industries. On the flip side, the growth of automation decreases the average laborer's share of value within the industry. This decrease in the average laborer's share of value can lead to lower wages and weaker job security. In order to combat these unemployment threats, we believe the best course of action is for the government to offer and support reskilling and retraining programs to educate the more general public on how to work alongside automation. These programs will teach them the basics of how to operate machinery and software, resolve technical issues, and how to properly maintain and repair technology. Another concern is that the use of this expensive automation technology will be only available for larger corporations, leaving smaller businesses at a massive disadvantage. On top of this, research from Boston University, the International Monetary Fund, and MIT found that between the years 2000 and 2018, the US tax system began taxing labor heavily, but placed low tax rates on investments in technology. In 2020, labor was taxed at a rate around 25 to 30%, and capital investment in automation was taxed only around 5%. Not only has this incentivized companies to automate jobs, but it actually led to a drastic decrease in laborers' share of income, where the average in 1980 was 64%, and that dropped to 57% by 2017. To help resolve this issue, Professor Akemoglu from MIT proposes raising the tax on automation investments to 10.15%. Based on their prediction models, this is estimated to increase employment by 1.14% and labor share by 1.93%. Although these figures may appear small, 1.14% of the current 161.5 million actively employed workers in America could affect as much as 1.8 million people.
One of the largest and most obvious issues regarding wealth inequality in the United States is the low minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour and has not been raised in 15 years, despite a 45% increase in the cost of living during that time. According to the Los Angeles Times, this marks the longest period without an increase in U.S. history. Some cities, like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York City, have addressed the issue by locally raising their minimum wages to reflect higher living costs. Minimum wage workers earning $15,000 annually are often near or below the poverty line. Adjusted for inflation, the minimum wage would be about $11 as of 2022, and economists suggest it would be closer to $12.85 if reflecting historical standards. With that being said, some critics argue that raising the minimum wage could lead to layoffs or increased prices. Financial analyst Jack Kelly claims higher labor costs might force businesses to cut jobs. However, economist Robert Pollin counters that workers are more productive when paid fairly. Evidence from cities with increased minimum wages show productivity gains tied to living wage policies. To address this issue, we propose pledging the federal minimum wage to inflation, following an immediate increase to $15. This system, already in place in some states, ensures yearly adjustments to keep pace with the cost of living. While the increase to $15 immediately would lift many workers above the poverty line and begin addressing the wage stagnation of the past 15 years. Additionally, economists Ben Harris and Melissa S. Kearney note a ripple effect. where raising the minimum wage also increases wages for workers earning just above it, benefiting millions more. While raising the minimum wage is crucial, it does not fully address wage inequality. Labor unions play a key role in advocating for better wages and working conditions. According to Merriam-Webster, a labor union is an organization of workers formed for the purpose of advocating its members' interests in respect to wages, benefits, and working conditions. Unions empower workers through collective bargaining, which, as noted by the UC Berkeley Labor Center, leads to 12.9% higher wages on average for unionized workers in California compared to their non-union counterparts. Right to work (RTW) laws weaken unions by allowing employees to opt out of paying union dues, while still benefiting from union-negotiated contracts. These laws, permitted under the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act and enacted in 26 states, reduce union funding and bargaining power. While RTW laws claim to promote individual freedom, they often result in lower wages overall. To strengthen unions, we propose amending the Taft-Hartley Act to prohibit RTW laws at a federal level. This would ensure unions have the financial resources to advocate effectively for workers. Although employees would be required to pay union dues, they would benefit from significantly higher wages and improved working conditions. Raising the minimum wage and supporting labor unions are a vital step towards reducing wealth inequality in the U.S.
We must bring jobs back to America, especially in tech, manufacturing, and IT, where global competition is fierce. Offering tax incentives and grants to companies that bring manufacturing and tech development back to U.S. soil can reduce reliance on overseas production. At the same time, we should invest in domestic tech hubs, regions that can become innovation centers with federal support for startups and research facilities. To support this growth, it would be beneficial to expand STEM education and provide targeted training programs that prepare workers for high-demand fields. One of the biggest problems is the continuous offshoring of U.S. jobs in all industries. Despite politicians' promises of millions of jobs from new trade agreements, these same agreements cause hundreds of thousands of jobs to be lost to other countries instead. To help prevent the further loss of jobs and to reclaim jobs already lost, the trade agreements the U.S. has entered should be reviewed. They should then be revised or withdrawn from. For example, the NAFTA agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico allows for free trade between the countries, with most products having no taxes or duties. This was promoted as a way to increase job opportunities in the United States. However, according to the Economic Policy Institute, around 680,000 jobs were lost to Mexico alone in this agreement, with over 400,000 of these being high-paying manufacturing jobs. This is one of many examples of problems caused by offshoring, and to fix it, both tariffs and trade deficits should be revised. An increase of tariffs in this example, from 0% to around 7.25%, would sway companies away from outsourcing when effectively paired with incentive programs. Providing tax incentives and grants would allow companies to establish facilities and factories in the U.S. for a lower cost, allowing them to switch the country of production back to the U.S. Coupled with overall infrastructure upgrades, tariffs and revised trade agreements are the most effective way to reshore jobs to increase domestic production and wages.